Welcome today to the Water Unite webinar. We are here today to talk about why should retailers and brands care about sustainability. I know as a 30-year veteran of this industry, they've cared about it for a very long time, but we're very pleased today to bring you some guests and some data that will make a business case that perhaps you haven't seen and or heard before. I'm joined today by guests from GfK, from Kantar, leveraging Europanel. We're going to have a group of speakers. I'll get onto that as our introduction goes, but first let me introduce a short video about Water Unite.
In a world where, for many, access to clean, safe water is taken for granted, the reality is that almost a third of the people on Earth live without any access to safe running water, and around 2.5 billion people lack even basic sanitation facilities. Despite being an essential requirement for all life, historically, water has received the lowest amount of investment compared to other key infrastructure sectors. $114 billion a year is required to meet the Sustainable Development Goals targets, 3 times what is currently invested. These acute water inequality challenges are exacerbated by increasing environmental pollution. 5 years ago, around 5 trillion pieces of plastic polluted the world's oceans. Today, that figure is 10 times higher. 70% of the 300 million tons of potentially recyclable plastic produced each year ends up being incinerated, in landfill, or in our oceans. We can help stop this by increasing investments in recycling to create a more effective circular economy. We can and must act now to address the plight of water poverty for billions of people and a plastics pollution pandemic that threatens the ecosystems of the planet that we all share. Water Unite's mission is to help ensure every person on the planet has access to clean water and safe sanitation in a world which is free from plastic pollution. Water Unite's simple voluntary micro-contribution of around 1 cent per liter of bottled water or alternative product sold provides an innovative funding solution to address these challenges. Through uniting retailers and brands, we believe we can achieve our mission within the next decade. The Water Unite model can be applied to any product. Using bottled water as an example, with the global market forecast to grow 20% to 576 billion liters by 2023, the micro-contribution of just 1 cent per liter can raise over $5 billion annually to drive meaningful global change. Addressing today's plastic pollution pandemic and the water poverty crisis cannot wait for another generation to take the initiative. With the backing of industry partners, Water Unite has already had measurable impact in helping to address water poverty and reduce plastics pollution, funding long-term programs to support plastics recycling schemes and the development of sustainable water and sanitation infrastructure. With your support, so much more is possible. By uniting around the simple and effective Water Unite micro-contribution, retailers and their partners are uniquely placed to make fundamental change, helping to ensure every person on the planet has access to clean water and safe sanitation, in a world where our oceans and those who depend on them are free from plastic pollution. There is a growing international consensus that we must act now. Partner with us today, so together we can change the world tomorrow.
Thank you, and I hope that's done a reasonably good job of giving you a sense of who and what we are at Water Unite. We've been around for a couple of years, as a matter of fact, and have had significant impact in raising funds to address the issues you've seen us talk about here. That is, solving for water poverty, providing safe sanitation, and very importantly, taking plastics out of the environment. So the what is quite clear for us. The why and the how, I think, is where we've been today. We've invested, along with our partners and our funding organizations, significantly into pulling data together to really understand what are the drivers, who is concerned about this from a consumer point of view. At the end of all of our days, the reality is that consumers are driving our business. And consumers have changed significantly in the last few decades, certainly in the last couple of years when we faced a global pandemic. The notion and the need to wash your hands is greater than ever, and the availability of water and sanitation facilities to do that. So as our name implies, Water Unite brings together a variety of organizations, disciplines, and essentially people around the globe to look at these issues from now a business perspective. Sustainability has been on the vocabulary of retail and consumer goods companies for decades. I've been involved in this industry for over 30 years and always had an eye towards how can we help the supply chain? How can we help suppliers? How can we help retailers and brands achieve the need to satisfy consumers' changing attitudes? And we've looked at something called the socially conscious consumer. You'll see slightly different, perhaps, names in the data that's going to be presented here, the eco actives and the groups that are now well defined and dimensioned by data that will help you understand what's going to happen here. We're joined, as I said earlier, by GfK, by Kantar, Europanel. We have speakers that will help us through several stages in this presentation today. First, we'll have a video by Richard, who will really go into some deep detail data. This is a data intensive webinar today, so I'll give you the heads up on that. Take notes, but also note that we can provide you with any of the content, any of the data that's presented here today. Lenneke and Simone will go on with their own presentations, and we will be in a dialogue, if you will. This is a conversation today meant to help you ask questions. We want to answer those questions here today as much as we can, but also ongoing as we move forward and as we finish our presentation today. So with that, and trying to look at my time and manage that as best we can, I'd like to take us now to a video that Richard has done for us. I think he's one of the luminaries in this industry in terms of insight, data, vision, and I hope you all enjoy it as much as we have.
Good afternoon. I'm Richard Herbert. I'm a Global Insight Director for Europanel. Europanel is jointly owned by Kantar and GfK, and the insights that I'll be looking at today are based on their household panels from around the world. I'll be looking at the new consumer norm and how that fits in with the sustainability and environmental aspects of that. In the last 12 months, there have been two major messages that have impacted the FMCG market since the spring of last year. Those are staying home and staying safe. Those two messages have had impacts on the market size, on personal safety in terms of where people shop and how they shop, on income disparity between the haves and the have-nots, on health, although I won't be touching on that today, and of course on the environment, which is the main area I will come to. The grocery market hit a record level in 2020. It was about 10% on average above what we saw in 2019. It was a range from one country to another, dependent on rules and lockdown and what was open, what was closed, but nevertheless a benefit to the category as a whole. In the sort of less partial lockdown periods in the middle of the year, it was about half that level, and we expect, with continuing working from home, that it will be about a third of that. So there will be a long-term benefit to the grocery market. And I think that's important when we look at the sustainability part of that. From that point of view, as looking at the environmental side, again, work that we did with McKinsey earlier in the year said that shoppers in 2021, nearly a third of them would be spending more on regional or local products, and nearly a quarter on environmentally friendly products. We have found the same in our work, Who Cares Who Does, which is a survey of our panelists around the world. The most active segment, the one that does most to reduce its footprint, the eco-actives increased by a quarter from 2019 to 2020, despite the pandemic. And large numbers of shoppers are looking for things like country of origin or natural. And GfK are showing this in a slightly different way, looking at people trying to reduce their meat and fish consumption, with over a third of people trying to do that. So again, all this says is that the environment, sustainability is a bigger impact, and the sustainability will be an ongoing driver of choice and an increasing driver of choice. So if we move from that to specifically the survey in 2021, Who Cares Who Does, and what that now looks like, and relate that to some of those new consumer normal numbers. First of all, we asked panelists about the environment and sustainability following the pandemic. 50% or nearly 50% said that sustainability was more or much more important. A large percentage also said it was at least equally important, and very few said that it was less or much less. So this issue is a growing one. It is one that is driving choice, and it is one, despite the pandemic, that's becoming even more important. Secondly, I mentioned the eco-actives, the group of shoppers who are doing the most to reduce their footprint. 20% in 2020, 22% on average globally, so a further 10% increase in the size of this group in 2021. That 22% varies significantly between different regions, highest in Western Europe, highest specifically in Germany, and lower in some of the other parts of the world where some other issues become more important. This group is also important in terms of spend. They spend 5% more than the average. So sustainability pays. We also asked about the key topics, biggest concerns. Not surprisingly, as in 2020, the biggest issue is climate change. It's been a big subject of debate, and 42% are putting that in their top 3 concerns. That's followed pretty closely by plastic waste and water pollution jointly, just over a third of consumer shoppers putting it in their top 3, and then by air pollution and deforestation. All of these are the same top 5 as we saw in 2020, and the numbers are still significant. Huge numbers of shoppers putting these as key concerns. The different countries do have slightly different priorities, water more in hot countries than in other countries, and obviously that's important to communication in different countries. But these issues remain very important. Now, one of the things that we looked at last year is something we call the value action gap. And that is the difference between the people who would like to shop sustainability and those that actually act as a result of it. We have to do more. That gap is 37% of the population, getting on for 40% of the population. That is huge. And that's the difference between people who say that they want to buy environmentally friendly packaging and those that regularly avoid plastic packaging. That's a huge gap between those two and a huge opportunity. And it's a huge opportunity because one of the things, linking back to some of the earlier comments, are around affordability and findability. Nearly 60% say that they either can't find or they can't afford these types of products. Now, returning to the benefit in terms of the environment and sustainability, that there are rewards there. A couple of questions that we asked. The first one, I've stopped buying certain products because of their negative impact. Over 2/3 have said that they do that either frequently or occasionally. And in terms of switching to more positive type products, that's nearly 70%. Companies and brands that do a good job will be rewarded. It's also shown not just in beliefs and what people say, but what they do. This is comparing 2 countries for The top 10 brands that over-index the most with that Ecoactives group. Looking at the UK, the total market for the 12 months to June 2021 increased by 5%. This top 10 brands went up by 23%. Same in Spain, despite less increase in the Ecoactives in Spain. So 7.5 for the total market, over 9% for this top 10 brands. Brands that do a good job will be rewarded. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And I hope you took away from this some really important points, that the fast-moving consumer goods market has benefited from the pandemic, and that's inward, stay closer to home, take care of themselves, but also they're working from home. They've changed their lifestyles significantly. Sustainability is more important to consumers despite COVID. And I think, again, it is added to a global perspective that we have not necessarily always shared in the past. We've seen a 10% increase in the Ecoactives versus 2020, and even higher in the GDP countries. Climate change, plastic waste, water pollution are the biggest global concerns. We've seen over and over again, and data now clearly supports this from a consumer's perspective. There's a huge opportunity in bridging this value action gap. We're going to hear much more about that in a few moments, and see statistics and data that will support that. And that sustainability pays. The entire purpose of this webinar today is to look at the business impact. How can you understand the return on investment for sustainability? It has typically been an elusive goal and target, one that's hard to measure. The metrics and the indicators for that have not been clearly defined, but they are much clearer today. And we can take insights from consumer research, from very rich data that we've now been able to collect over the last couple of years. And very specifically, to continue on that theme, one, I want to make sure that you know that we have a Q&A session going on very specifically in the agenda, but you can post your questions here. And Louis Goring-Morris, who is my co-host here today, will capture those. We will answer those questions live or put them into a chat so that's possible to engage with that. And then after that, we will come back and discuss some of these points. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce two of our segments today. Lenneke and Simone will be doing their presentations from GfK, Kantar, and I'll turn it over to Lenneke at this point in time. Thanks, Louis.
Thanks, Chris. I am just starting my video. There you are. Hope you can all see. Yeah, there we go. So my name is Lenneke Schils, and I am Global Insights Director, FMCG at GfK. And it's a real pleasure for me to be here today to basically discuss with you on such a differentiating topic, really, when we talk about future market development. And from our point of view, how better to do that than by really starting to look at what really drives consumer behavior, and especially at the ultimate measure of consumer demand, which is what's happening at the point of sale. So by relying on this continuous purchasing data that we gather, and this multi-year study that Richard's also mentioned, Who Cares, Who Does, in about the next 10 minutes or so, I would really love to convince you that there's not only a environmental imperative, a societal imperative, but definitely a business imperative as well when it comes to sustainability. And it's these two parameters of caring and doing that really underpin any kind of behavior change. So this is really where I'd love to start and have a closer look together with you at. And when we talk about caring and doing in the realm of sustainability, we really have to talk about what's happening on the European continent. But this is really where we see the green agenda being driven forward the fastest by consumers. Because at this point, 28% of European consumers are what we entitle eco-actives, meaning they truly care about environmental concerns, are really worried, but they are also actually really taking lots of prompt measures to reduce their own waste. And it also pays to have a look at the second cohort we call the eco-considerers, which at 44% is quite a big cohort as well, which are consumers that truly care and are worried about environmental problems, but find it hard or inconvenient to take real action. And I'd like to draw your attention a bit to, well, the right side of your screen, hopefully, where you see this big green bar with 46%. And this is the percentage of eco-actives we are actually seeing in Germany. So this is huge. If you come to think of it, it means that already 1 in 2 consumers in Germany is acting up, taking steps to reduce their own waste. And this obviously translates into their buying behavior as well. So that's why Germany is really leading the way here. It's in that sense, the world's greenest market when it comes to consumer behavior. And it really serves as a great market to look closer at, to really understand what future business will look like, because other countries are bound to follow suit. And as stated before, sustainability pays, not only because of the sheer size of this cohort of eco-actives, for example, in Germany, 46%, where together they represent 43 billion euros spent in fast-moving consumer goods. So that's huge. But they're also really valuable consumers because they tend to spend a lot. They have really big baskets. And they also tend to frequent stores more than other shoppers. So they're in and out your stores possibly a lot. So it's really we really can no longer talk about a niche when we talk about eco-active shoppers. They are becoming the majority. And also here we see that the brands that do well with the eco-actives are those that are growing the quickest. When we look at these top 10 brands that over-index with this group, we see an average growth rates across all shoppers of 11%. So that is outgrowing again as well the German growth rate market growth rate. And obviously within the eco-actives, these brands grow faster. And my colleague Simone will talk more about this and have more proof of this even further, but it's a really important point to already keep in mind. Secondly, it's also true that this obviously translates into higher expectations for retailers. Already at the onset of the pandemic, German shoppers were really expecting their retailers to act up and green up. Because when we ask what are the top areas you think retailers should invest in, firmly at the top 3, we see only sustainability related areas: reduction of the use of plastic, the availability of local products, and the reduction of food waste. And also when we compare then German shoppers to neighboring countries, other European countries, we see that even more than elsewhere, again, it's these sustainability related topics that come out on top: refill stations, local products, and the reduction of plastic. And people could also choose from more healthy assortment, broader assortment, pack size, staffing, personnel, loads of topics to choose from. But this is what really is topping the charts here in Germany. Now, fair to say, it is mainly governments and manufacturers that shoppers kind of turn to expect that they will solve the environmental problems first. However, it is also true that across the globe, shoppers are not quite satisfied with the way retailers are currently helping them in their efforts to be sustainable. Roughly 1 in 2 believes that retailers are doing a good job. It means the other 2 out of 2 doesn't think so. So there's a little bit of reputational gain here, I guess, as well. So it does really represent a huge opportunity for you. By sheer size, 46% already being active, representing only in Germany already 43 billion euros in spend, the reputational gains that there are. But we've also seen, and this especially counts for many of the other countries across the world where the intentions might be there, but the their willingness or their ability to act is a little bit lower, we see a value action gap. And also still in Germany, the world's greenest market, we see a quite sizable value action gap of 24% still, representing 22 billion euros in spend as well. So because also here, many people try to buy environmentally friendly packaging, 79%, but only about half the population is actually regularly avoiding this. So this gap is quite sizable, and it is even bigger as expected among the considerers. This group is finding it really hard to act. And as Richard's already shown as well, plastic and packaging are really top of mind when it comes to what consumers are worried about, but also where they think they can make the biggest difference and where they, for example, pay a lot of attention to when they pick their products or they search for labels. Is it recycled? Where is it coming from? And when we ask them, irrespective of whether it technically might be true, plastic bags, plastic drink bottles are really strongly in the top when it comes to types of packaging that consumers find the most polluting. Now, when we then look at the actual actions people take regarding these packaging that they find so polluting, we see huge discrepancies between the actives, where we see 2/3 of them, 65% regularly avoiding these kind of packaging, to virtually none amongst the dismissers. Now, as these actives are rising, as we know, we do see this already really translated in the shares of value in the category. Because if we look, for example, at carbonated soft drinks, you can look at the purple stats on your right, we can see that actually the share of carbonated soft drinks sold in plastic bottles went down from 87% last year to 81% in this year. So that's quite a drastic drop already. So we see those that take action really do, and it really turns into a different category layout, I would say. But there's also really huge cohorts of shoppers that want to take action and don't know how or find it difficult. And here we see that the fact that these sustainable products are harder to find or are more expensive as the top reason why people are hesitant to take action. And this is especially true for these eco-considerers. But also, and I think this is probably even important at the same level, that we see that the day-to-day priorities and other types of distractions are in the way. 37% of the considerers, for example, says, I get distracted by other things when I'm in the supermarket. So this idea of findability, ease of shopping, and of course, affordability together are really key in making, in the end, behavioral change work towards a more sustainable shopping experience. So to conclude my short contribution here, I think basically speaking from a consumer perspective, it's really the case that we've never in time before seen such a momentum where the consumer demand is there and the willingness is there as well. But it's really now time to start moving from a transactional focus to real transformative action. And this is really key to close the value action gap. So it's sure we must develop sustainable offers, sustainable ways of purchasing, sustainable ways of producing, but we need to tie this in with affordability and convenience if we want to capture true transformative action across all groups. And for this, we really find that there is 5 steps. First, and this is more on the rational side, there needs to be conscience, caring and doing. So the caring part must be stimulated all the time, and it needs to be made understood what the consequences of actions and these big environmental problems are. It needs to be made easy. Shoppers are not going to go across the whole store in each and every category trying to find out what the most sustainable solutions is for them. But it also needs to start appeal to more emotional triggers in order to really get this action going. So this has everything to do with making it desirable and making it rewarding. And then if these come together, we can truly say that we are creating a new habit. And then this is really the foundation, of course, of behavior change. And now I'd like to pass the floor on to my colleague Simone, who will really talk a bit more about these 5 points, but from a real, true, concrete business case in the water category in Germany. So off to you, Simone.
Thank you, Lenneke. Wait, I share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see you, Simone. Just
wait.
the presentation.
Wait, it's loading. Okay, change the mode. Okay, you see the full screen?
Perfect, thanks.
Okay, thanks. So a warm welcome from my side. My name is Simone Pech. I'm from GfK and working in the field of consumer panels here in Germany. And today I want to show you the opportunities to target here in Germany with a showcase in the mineral water bottle market. And also I want to show you other products which could benefit from a micro contribution initiative in Germany. So let's have a look. How big is the German water bottle market? You see it's a huge market. It's about 2 billion euro last year in value sales. And if you have a look on penetration here, it's about 83% of buyers. But you see there are category levers. So if you look on the allocation, we've already known from Lenneke, how are the different eco segments allocated. You see in the mineral water market, the eco-actives, they undertrade. They don't meet the fair share here if you compare versus fast-moving consumer goods. But here you see the eco-considerers, they have the highest shares in value sales and even overtrade. And the same picture you see on the buyer share. So you see that almost 80% of eco-conscious consumers determine 80% of the value sales in mineral water market. So both groups, eco-actives and eco-considerers, are really valuable to target on. Why is this so? Let's have a look on the buying behavior. You see here within eco-actives, they buy even more, 15% more on their basket. You see it's much higher compared to the average shopper, and they prefer fewer trips, but larger ones, if you look on the basket. So it's a really valuable target group to focus on, but besides also the eco-considerers, since you see when you look on the average spend per buyer, it's really the highest on average. It's about 69 euro on average per year. So both valuable target groups to focus on for mineral water. And even if eco-actives claim to try to avoid buying plastic bottles, you see about nearly 80% still buy mineral water in 2020 in the category at least once. And you see that just some category levers. And when they buy, they prefer branded brands in mineral water. We had a look also across different fast-moving consumer categories, and there exist categories where consumers feel their purchase can really make a difference, and there's a high acceptance of packaging change, like for example, fruit and vegetables categories. In contrast to the beverage category, where consumers feel their purchase can't really make a difference and they don't seek for packaging variants in per se. So the key issue is here to feed the understanding how consumers can really make a difference here. So sustainability represents a huge opportunity for German grocery retailers and brand owners in the bottled water market. As we've seen, the eco-actives and the eco-considerers, they determine 80% of the value sales in mineral water market. And in absolute figures, you see it's about 1.7 billion euro in Germany. When it comes to gender choice, you see across the different eco segments, the eco actors prefer more supermarkets and specialist stores ex online. They show here disproportionately high shares compared to the other segments. But you see the highest share in value sales they have among discounters, but it's decreasing, slightly decreasing in 2020 versus previous year, and also within the eco considerers. And that's why we focused on the discounters here in the showcase and picked up a special discounter. We won't name the name here. It's a global represented German retailer and with a high environmental reputation. And you see within mineral water, this retailer, this discounter doesn't meet the fair share. You see the 11% market share for fast-moving consumer goods of this retailer and 9% for mineral water. So this gap is worth 42 million euro. And why is this retailer undertrading? It's undertrading because it's undertrading among eco-actives and also among eco-considerers. So the key issue here is category conversion, to convert more people buying mineral water at this discounter. And if you can encourage these two groups, this would be worth an additional opportunity of about 40 million euro for this discounter in Germany. And how this could be achieved, for example, category conversion with the help of micro contribution initiative and micro contribution partnership. So let's have a look on some German brand success stories. I picked up some brands really show a big growth in value sales and who attract eco-actives. And brands with commercial benefits in Germany, like SodaStream. SodaStream is a soda system with focus on glass. And you see it could increase value sales up to 70% in 2020 versus last year. And across all eco-actors in Germany, 40% nearly buy at once, one time, a soda system in Germany. So that's why how to read it. And it's very engaged in sustainable campaigns, like you see on the picture, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who supports, who wants to create awareness for sustainability and plastic waste. And secondly, I picked up Oatly. It's a Scandinavian brand who is really present in Germany. And it's plant-based milk based on oats. And you see it could triple its sales last year versus previous year. And it's very transparent on its packaging. It shows its carbon footprint, like the CO2 emission, and is also active in sustainable campaigns. Like it's their own, it's so-called Je ne sais quoi award. They award amazing people for doing amazing environmental things, like this shark girl who gets an award in money, about 4,000 euro they awarded. And she wants to prevent fishing for sharks and educates fishermen, for example, finding alternatives with their boats in the tourism industry. So it's really a big social brand in Germany, Oatly. And last but not least, it's a good example for a cross-category campaign. Here it's Share, it's called brand. It's a startup in Germany, and it works with the principle, the one-to-one vision, buy one, give one, across different fast-moving consumer categories. So across, for example, food categories like cereal bars, and in the body care segment with soaps, and also in the beverage category. And the principle behind this, for example, within beverage, if you buy one bottle of 100% recycled used plastic, you donate 1 day to a person getting access to water who needs it in a social project. And you see it could also nearly triple its sales last year in 2020 versus previous year, and it cooperates with a lot of social initiatives like Aktion gegen Hunger, Action Against Hunger, and cooperates with famous German retailers like Rewe, a supermarket chain, and drugstore chain DM in Germany. And you see they have QR code on their packaging where people can track where they directly help when buying this product. So it's the so-called example for a visual brand. It's not only sustainable, sondern it's like a world improver. Now we have looked on the beverage category mostly, and here you see the top 10 fast-moving consumer brands with disproportionate high share with ecoactives. And here I want to point out, you see share on the second placement, in the second ranking. And in the first place, you see Rapunzel. It's a bio brand in Germany with also a lot of social engagement. And on the third place, you see it's Oatly. So you can say that ecoactives are mostly attracted to purposeful, sustainable brands in Germany. And let's have a look on the category level. You see on the left side, categories, top categories with disproportionate high share with ecoactives. For example, meat substitutes, vegetable spreads, antipasti, or superfoods like seeds and cereal grains. So these have disproportionate high share for ecoactives. And on the left side, you see examples of categories, convenience categories, which more attract eco-dismissers. So they can't touch ecoactives in the moment. And these are examples for categories that have to act now, because if you've seen in Lenneke's part, in Germany, ecoactives are growing to nearly half of the population. And if they don't act now and attract eco-conscious consumers, they will lose in future value sales. And one example to point out is in the ready meal sector, for example, there exist solutions how to attract also eco-conscious consumers. For example, Iglo launched in Germany last year the Green Cuisine, a sub-brand to attract eco-conscious consumers with, for example, vegetarian lasagna, or they also launched frozen protein vegetable meals. So there are solutions here also for convenience categories. So in sum, you can say ecoactives are preferring more vegetarian categories or scratch cooking related like antipasti, and avoiding heavily processed categories like here, for example, the ready meals. We have looked on a brand level, on a category level, and last but not least, I want to show you opportunities on the trend level. You see that ecoactives follow more sustainable brands like veggie, natural cosmetics, here plant-based alternatives, or for example, glass packaging. And in contrast to eco-considerers, who are more focused on convenience category, convenience trends. So as we know, eco-considerers, the biggest barriers for them is to act sustainable is convenience and price. This is Lenneke's chart. We have seen the different steps to take, here illustrated by special examples to better imagine how to drive behavior change from transaction to transformation. So you see, to make it understood, for example, the Danone initiatives for cleanup operations with local issues. Here you see, I see my headline here the whole time, sorry. Second step is to make it easy. It's a brand new initiative here in pioneering in the EU, the digital watermarks. And it's starting this month in Copenhagen. Here, digital watermarks for better sorting and higher quality recycling. And to make it desirable, here the example for the Lacoste logo with the crocodile in the logo to create awareness about endangered animals. And to make it rewarding, of course, the micro contribution partnerships like Water United. It's based on a simple principle. If you buy 1 bottle of water, you fund water sanitation projects. And the biggest challenge is the last step, to make it a habit. Here, for example, refill stations, which are placed at the point of sales to enable eco-actives and eco-considerers. And in Germany, for example, Bayersdorf is testing currently with its brand Nivea shower gels for Nivea in cooperation with the famous drugstore chain DM. So these are the different steps to take. And last but not least, you can see, I can't switch now. No. See, it's the iceberg. So you can say that sustainability has to be reinforced nowadays, because it's not only about green topics. You see that there are additional aspects to come up, like localism or mutual partnerships, mutual caretaking, social aspects. To the shopper needs increased on sustainable brands nowadays. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Simone. Thank you, Lenneke. I just wanted to do very briefly a comment about the business case, if you will, for Water Unite. Louis, are you seeing my video now?
Wait, I stop.
Yep. Are we back?
Yeah, Chris, you're up.
Okay, sorry. I want to make a very a brief case. It's simple: a bottle of water and 1 cent. And I think if we really want to understand the principles here, is that Water Unite is about partnering. It's about bringing a simple turnkey solution to retailers that they can, instead of a one-by-one effort, which of course is very important, can start to see how they work together in collaboration globally, but also locally in ways that can make a huge difference. A turnkey program coming to Water Unite and our partners to enable us to work in developing countries around programs with a great deal of data to support that transparency, and creating what we'd like to call stories about the results. Apologies for the sun. I hate to say that, apologizing for that, but it's now come in and my video quality is going down a little bit. As you saw just a moment ago, we are in a question and answer session right now. We have been collecting questions and answers from our participants. So Louis, if you don't mind, I'll switch it over to those Q&A and we'll answer those as they've come in, and I'll continue on and finish as we go. Great, thanks. So can I ask Simone and Lenneke and Chris actually all to pop your cameras back on? So sure. Hopefully, if this has worked, we can everyone viewing can have a little grid view. So Chris, if you can put your camera back on when you get a moment. So firstly, thank you to all the speakers. Thank you, Lenneke. Thank you, Simone. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Chris. Also to everyone that joined and registered to us today. I was just looking at the latest tally. We had 34 different retailers and brands represented. So really good session. So I hope we got a lot out of it. And thank you also for the questions that came in. So we haven't got a huge amount of time, but I'll try and get through a few of the key ones that came in today and ahead of the session. So I'll rattle through that. So first we've got one, I think this is GfK, so potentially Lenneke, if I can point it at you. Are there any examples in industry similar to Water Unite which provide proofs that schemes like this positively impact the bottom line?
Yeah, well, I can quickly think of top of my head one of the, I think, the more longer standing initiatives, which is fair trade, which year on year has been growing, and especially in the last few years has really picked up. And I think this is in line with Simone is saying, these eco-actives and the trend charts he showed, they are broad in their orientation and scope as to how they interpret sustainability or let's say fair living. So it's not just being green or avoiding plastic, it's a full lifestyle, right? So you really see also fair trade picking up again. But I also really think Simone already gave a great example from a cross-category level, brand level, with her share example, which I think is really unique, as well as it is growing really fast, but it's also really on point when it comes to findability. And this is one of the biggest issues, right? So you need something for consumers that is easily recognizable. and creating such a cross-category brand with a simple principle is really proving to be welcomed. Yeah.
Great, thanks. So we'll go on to the next one. And just a heads up, anyone that's written in a question today, if we don't cover it off, then we'll do our best to get back to you, drop you an email. And that applies to if you haven't put a question in, we'll put our contact details up at the end of the session. So please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or follow up. I think this one's probably for you, Chris. How do you work with retailers and brands to educate shoppers about what Water Unite does? How do you inspire them to know their choices are making a positive impact?
So I think the question's a couple of parts. Our education, of course, we have collateral materials and data, and in fact, the data that you've just seen from GfK and Kantar is shared and will be shared with retailers and brands as they understand what is the impact of social consciousness in terms of consumers' trends and behaviors. We also, I think, act in partnership and allow point of sale. The findability point that we've heard a couple of times now. You can go into a co-op store in the UK, for example, and at a shelf, there will be signage that says, if you buy one bottle of this, water, 1 penny of that will go, 1 cent of that will go towards helping people around the world. So I think communication is the key. Transparency, legitimacy, the fact that we have not only provided programs, we have collected data. We're very, very keen on making sure that people have transparency. The stories we create are compelling and they're scalable. We can repeat this. And I think, again, back to the business case, it's a public-private engagement. We can leverage funds. So there's a lot of things that Water Unite does for a retailer that frankly, they cannot do for themselves. They cannot necessarily go out and bring a government on board to match their funds. We can, and we have, and we do that. And I think that's a big differentiator. And I think it helps round out the story for a retailer when they're talking to this very exclusive and important group of consumers called socially conscious or eco adopters, all those things.
Yes, the eco actors. Thanks, Chris. Next up, this is probably one again for GfK. So has the pandemic helped or hindered the openness of consumers and retailers to partnership initiatives? So what have you guys seen there?
Yeah, well, I can jump in here again. I think Richard already testified a bit to this in his part, and I think in all our knowledge and data, it definitely shows that social consciousness and eco-consciousness definitely predates the crisis, and it's been really propelled by the crisis. So rather than saying despite the crisis, it's really thanks to the crisis, I would say that people have regained focus. We do see a bit of a shift in focus, and I think this was mentioned again also a couple of times with like the focus being a bit more onto like localized efforts or local foods, local products. I think, Simone, you had an example we discussed before on a retailer.
Wait, I want to show. It's really nice to see.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Wait. Here you see that here retailers use this. Yeah, mutual caretaking increased in Germany, and retailers use this in Germany for strengthening their image. There were a lot of campaigns, like from Rossmann, from Rewe, from DM, like here wir halten zusammen, we take care of each other, and so they used also this to strengthen their image, and also Rewe here initiated a local initiative, and which was very successful last year. It's called the Scheine für Vereine. It's to support amateur sports clubs. So if you buy something at Rewe at 15 euro, you get a voucher, and with this voucher you can spend, you can donate incentives to your amateur sports club to help them. It was really successful. About here they donated 80 million euro. And it was 40% higher than last year. So also during the crisis, you see that local initiatives here in Germany, initiated by retailers, were very successful and showed much more mutual caretaking. And also here I have an example for Lillet. It's in the beverage field. It's from Kiel, from North Germany. It's the name of the location. And they initiated here one initiative to support their location. If you buy 1 bottle of water, they donate 50% of the sales to restaurants, to support local restaurants in this location. So it shows the solidarity in Germany with local initiatives started from brands, from retailers. And yeah, retailers use it for their image campaigns also. So
yeah,
it's really high action.
And I think if we get down to that, like in the initial question, whether it like hindered or helped, like the openness to partnerships, I think definitely yes, but it might also has reshifted the focus a bit from like more like national or global outlook to really like what's happening on the few square meters around me. So I don't know, Louis, if I could actually pose a question myself.
Yeah,
but do you think, Chris, that how do you then see this like gained focus on what's local when your focus is like rather overseas in many aspects as well?
That's a great question, Lenneke. I think the answer is clear, is that if you look at any retailer in the world, their supply chain is typically sourcing products and goods from around the world. Simone, if you could just let your screen go down. So we have an extended supply chain, and whether you're buying produce from Africa or you're looking at products that are being manufactured in different countries with different people, we are a global community. And while, yes, we do want to shop local and we do want to encourage consumers to use products that are within a few square meters, as you will say, the reality is that the bulk of products in shops today come from outside of the local trading area. And back to Water Unite's unique aspect, we can provide both local programs and international or global reach in terms of our programs. So we get questions like that very often. How can I make sure that the funds that are coming from my consumers and my business are being used against programs that are important to us? So we do surveys, we do research about who are you interested in helping, what are your issues, and we make sure that we can align our programs, and we go through an evaluation process when we look at each of the programs that we're funding to ensure that we are covering off all of those concerns and issues. So very good question. Thank you for that.
Sorry.
That actually leads very nicely into the video. We've got a short message from the Co-op CEO, Steve Morales, in a moment. But just one more question for you, Chris, that's come in yes. in one or two sentences. That's the challenge. About what makes Water Unite different from other charities. What's the unique selling point?
I think the very simple answer is simplicity. The reality is that there are many, there are hundreds of charities out there that all have great cause, purpose, various funding mechanisms. But when Water Unite looked at what the challenge is, the gap, the billions of dollars and euros and yen that need to be raised to solve these issues cannot come from a single source or even in several sources. It needs to be able to scale. It needs to be able to apply to a variety of programs. Water, plastic are two of the issues that we focus on. And by the way, both of those have significant impact on climate change. We don't have time in this program today to talk about that, but hopefully we'll have another where we can understand that recycling and the ability to manage water all have a very significant impact on deforestation, on climate change, and issues that we also know are important to consumers. So if I had to come back to it, I would say 1 bottle of water and 1 penny. If I could find my cent, that's what differentiates us. We can become an outsourcing agent in some respects for the variety of programs that retailers and brands are looking to, and they can participate and see in what it is we're doing.
Great. No, thanks, Chris. Not quite 1 sentence, but a good effort. So I'm just gonna, before Chris sort of closes up the session, again, thank you for everyone's joined us. We've got a great video from Steve Morales. So Steve Morales is the CEO of the Co-op. The Co-op were Water Unite's first partner. They're the 5th largest retailer in the UK. This video was actually filmed pre-COVID, so looking forward to updating this with Steve and hopefully meeting again in person when we all can. But yeah, important to note that the money raised now stands at 17 million, so even greater impact from the Co-op. So I'm just going to play this 2-minute video to share with everyone today.
Hi, my name's Steve Morales and I'm the CEO of the Co-op in the UK. We're the biggest consumer-owned business in the country with 4.6 million active members trading with us each week. Through our own Co-op food stores and through our wholesale business, we supply some 8,000 shops across the country and have a presence in most communities across the UK. For us though, community is global as well as local. The Co-op employs 64,000 colleagues around the country, but we're linked into a global supply chain that stretches across 6 continents and 68 countries. The products we sell connect us to 500,000 workers around the world and to their families. So we may be a UK-based business with UK customers and members, but we are global in our outlook and our influence. And for the last 10 years, we've been tackling water poverty by supporting water projects from the sale of our Co-op bottled water. In that time, we've raised an amazing £10 million, which has supported communities to do many things, to drill new boreholes, to fix broken pipes, and build safe, clean toilets. But the scale of the problem that we're facing into is still huge. Some 2.4 billion people still don't have access to a safe, clean toilet. 2 million people die each year from waterborne diseases, and most of the deaths are children under the age of 5. But this is all preventable. So 2 years ago, we went a step further by becoming the first business in the world to join the Water Unite project. Now we also make donations to water projects from the sale of bottled water across the brands that we sell to. And in the last 2 years, we've raised a further 2 million as a result. Water Unite are asking a number of key global grocery retailers to join us and to become part of this program and to work with us in making water poverty a thing of the past.
So thank you, Steve and Co-op, for that video. Chris, I'll leave for you to tie up, but while we do that, I'm just going to put everyone's information on the screen. So if you want to contact Water Unite, if you want to contact Europanel and GfK, I'll put the emails up there.
Great, thanks so much. And I want to begin to close, if you will, by thanking our speakers and our guests. Certainly, we wouldn't have been able to pull this together on our own, and the data that you've seen from GfK and Kantar, I believe, are more compelling than the emotions associated with this. We're here for a reason. I've served the consumer goods and retail industry for almost 30 years, and I think that we also serve consumers. Now, to follow on from this, please contact any of us that you see on the screen. We have Q&As that we can provide out to you. We can provide you a copy with the full presentation and the data you saw today. And I think most of all, take this message back inside your organization, ask questions amongst your colleagues about what can we do, how can we do it, who does, who cares, the questions that we've seen raised here today and backed up by some of the most highly regarded and scientific academic credential you could ever imagine from these two great organizations. I want to thank Louis for helping to facilitate this, as he always does, one of my colleagues at Water Unite, one of the best out there. And Richard, obviously, for his contribution. Steve Morales, who is closing our video, has said the things that I think most of us would like to hear from retailers. I invite all of you to join us, and hopefully we'll be able to see you in a live setting as we get onto this next generation of our business lives together. Thanks, Louis. Thanks to all of you for attending today. And we look forward to continuing our dialogue with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris. And just as a reminder, you should have all been emailed feedback form. So if you do have a couple of minutes to fill in feedback, we're always trying to improve our sessions, improve our convening. So that would be great if you can. And I'll leave you with that roundup video just to remind everyone why we're here and what we're trying to achieve. Thank you again.
Thanks all.
In a world where, for many, access to clean, safe water is taken for granted, the reality is that almost a third of the people on Earth live without any access to safe running water, and around 2.5 billion people lack even basic sanitation facilities. Despite being an essential requirement for all life, historically, water has received the lowest amount of investment compared to other key infrastructure sectors. $114 billion a year is required to meet the Sustainable Development Goals targets, 3 times what is currently invested. These acute water inequality challenges are exacerbated by increasing environmental pollution. 5 years ago, around 5 trillion pieces of plastic polluted the world's oceans. Today, that figure is 10 times higher. 70% of the 300 million tons of potentially recyclable plastic produced each year ends up being incinerated, in landfill, or in our oceans. We can help stop this by increasing investments in recycling to create a more effective circular economy. We can and must act now to address the plight of water poverty for billions of people and a plastics pollution pandemic that threatens the ecosystems of the planet that we all share. Water Unite's mission is to help ensure every person on the planet has access to clean water and safe sanitation in a world which is free from plastic pollution. Water Unite's simple voluntary micro-contribution of around 1 cent per liter of bottled water or alternative product sold provides an innovative funding solution to address these challenges. Through uniting retailers and brands, we believe we can achieve our mission within the next decade. The Water Unite model can be applied to any product. Using bottled water as an example, with the global market forecast to grow 20% to 576 billion liters by 2023, the micro-contribution of just 1 cent per liter can raise over $5 billion annually to drive meaningful global change. Addressing today's plastic pollution pandemic and the water poverty crisis cannot wait for another generation to take the initiative. With the backing of industry partners, Water Unite has already had measurable impact in helping to address water poverty and reduce plastics pollution, funding long-term programs to support plastics recycling schemes and the development of sustainable water and sanitation infrastructure. With your support, so much more is possible. By uniting around the simple and effective Water Unite micro-contribution, retailers and their partners are uniquely placed to make fundamental change, helping to ensure every person on the planet has access to clean water and safe sanitation, in a world where our oceans and those who depend on them are free from plastic pollution. There is a growing international consensus that we must act now. Partner with us today, so together we can change the world tomorrow.